In this video, we've compiled the 5 most expensive scams in the history of Pawn Stars. Without further ado, let's get started. Number 5. Shoeless Joe Jackson.
I have a book signed by Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Absolutely incredible.
The seller mentioned that the book was actually signed by Shoeless Joe Jackson himself, which left Rick amazed. Shoeless Joe Jackson was a legendary baseball player known for his involvement in the infamous Black Sox scandal, where he and 7 other players from the 1919 Chicago White Sox were accused of fixing the World Series.
The story is that him and 7 other guys on the 1919 Chicago White Sox took money to fix the World Series.
Rick's excitement grew as he talked about Shoeless Joe Jackson's baseball legacy, mentioning how he was such a talented hitter that even Babe Ruth copied his style. Despite the scandal, Rick believed that Shoeless Joe Jackson deserved a place in the Baseball Hall of Fame. The seller listened as Rick passionately spoke about Shoeless Joe Jackson's achievements before inquiring about the price he wanted for the book.
Shoeless Joe Jackson was a baseball legend. Such a good hitter, Babe Ruth actually copied his style.
Rick asked the seller about the desired selling price for the book, hoping to strike a profitable deal. The seller asked for $30,000 for the book.
So how much did you want to get out of it?
I'd like to get like $30,000 for the book.
Rick tried to bargain and refused to pay more than $13,000. After some negotiation, the seller agreed to sell the book for $13,000.
We'll go a penny more. I mean, ask for $1 more, you can just pick the book up and leave. But I'll go $13,000.
Rick was shocked when the experts declared that the signature was a feeble imitation. The book was not worth the $13,000 that Rick had paid for it.
This signature is real. This is by far one of the craziest things you brought to me. So what I have here is one of the only Joe Jackson signatures that all the authenticators can agree upon. Look at the A. This A here he was struggling with. This one looks like a pretty normal A. And then the K here goes straight into an O, whereas this, the K, he tries to do the loop. I'm not convinced that it's real.
Number 4. 1932 Ford Model B Roadster.
I got a call from a guy who wants to sell his classic 1932 Ford. How's it going?
Got a 1932 Ford Roadster here, steel body.
It's nice.
A restorer invited Rick and Corey to examine a 1932 Ford Model B Roadster and expressed interest in selling this car. Upon arrival, Rick inquired about the car's condition, to which the owner claimed to have spent 3 years and $60,000 on its restoration.
What are you looking to get out of it, man?
I have 140 in it, 80 in parts, and I'm figuring 3 years of labor is around 60.
Rick asked about the desired price, and the owner stated that he wanted to recoup $70,000. Rick disagreed, stating that typically such restorations are driven by love rather than financial gain.
Generally on these things, it's a labor of love, not a labor of money.
You're right. Yes.
Rick requested permission to have an expert assess the vehicle. The owner agreed, and Rick left to call in the expert. Upon returning, Rick confirmed the car was in excellent shape and estimated its value to be between $70,000 and $75,000. They agreed on a final price of $68,250, and a deal was struck. Unfortunately, Rick later discovered that the expert he consulted was not as experienced as he initially believed. The car turned out to be a hot rod modification of the original, significantly reducing its value. It was only worth around $50,000. As a result, Rick incurred a loss of $18,250 on this transaction. Number 3. Gibson Mandolin.
Gibson mandolin.
The Gibson mandolin was from the early 1930s, and Gibson made great mandolins during that period. Chumley acknowledged the craftsmanship of the instrument and noticed the authentic sticker inside. He saw the potential for a deal and approached it with confidence in his profit-making skills.
Hey, Rick. Corey, Rick. Gibson mandolins are sweet.
You can see the craftsmanship on it is phenomenal.
I see the sticker in there. Maybe we can make a deal.
The seller initially asked for $3,000, which was way above Chumley's budget. However, he was determined and focused on the prize. Chumley negotiated with the seller, offering a lower price of $1,300. The seller's asking price was still beyond Chumley's limit, but he pressed on, hoping to strike a deal.
I'd like to get $3,000 out of it if I could.
I actually have a spending limit of $1,000, $1,300.
Chumley assessed the condition of the mandolin and pointed out its shape, albeit a little dusty. He pushed his offer to $1,400, and the negotiation continued. Eventually, they settled on a price of $1,500, which Chumley deemed fair. He appreciated the agreement and expressed his gratitude.
I'll go 14, and that's pushing the barrel.
$1,500, and we got a deal.
15 sounds fair. I can make a
15?
profit.
Chumley acquired the mandolin, but doubts lingered in his mind. To confirm its authenticity, he sought the expertise of Jesse from Cowtown Guitars. Jesse examined the instrument and made a startling discovery. He noticed that the logo had been cut out with scissors, and the G in Gibson was not a font the company had ever used. Additionally, the finish appeared to be plastic, whereas genuine Gibsons were coated in a lacquer finish. Jesse concluded that the mandolin was a fake and estimated its value to be around a mere $100.
Cut out with some scissors, and it's not even a G that Gibson ever used. And the finish is like plastic. This is fake as hell, man. Maybe about $100.
All right.
Yeah, dude, sorry about that.
I hate mandolin.
Number 2. Comic book collection.
I have my uncle's comic book collection. Was handed down to me.
Pretty cool.
A woman walked into the store carrying a collection of valuable comics. There was nothing suspicious about her appearance. Chum was behind the counter when the blonde lady entered with 7 boxes filled with her late uncle's comic book collection. She mentioned that the collection had been handed down to her, which Chum found pretty cool. He immediately dived into the boxes, ignoring Antoine's advice to call Paul, the comic book expert. Chum acted like he knew everything about comics and brushed off the suggestion to contact Paul.
To get somebody down here that knows what they're talking about.
Dude, I don't need Paul. These are comic books.
The lady explained that she wanted to sell the comics to take her kids on vacation and asked for $2,000.
What exactly are you looking to get for him?
$2,000.
Chum counter-offered $350, but the lady refused to negotiate. Chum then offered $50 per box, which totaled $350. The lady tried to negotiate again, asking for $500, but Chum insisted that $500 was the lowest he would go.
I'll give you $50 a box. That's $350.
I don't want no parts of this if you don't call Paul down here.
Feeling unsure about the situation, Chum finally decided to accept the lady's price of $500. He believed that life was about taking chances, and this was one of those moments.
Life is about chances, and sometimes you just gotta take them.
However, when Rick demanded an evaluation from an actual expert, Chum didn't like what he heard. The expert pointed out some really cool comics in the collection, such as the first Taskmaster, the first Nova, and Red Hulk. He also mentioned Doctor Strange. However, he stated that only 18 of the comics were worth $200 each, while the rest were only worth 5 cents each. The stack that Chum had pulled out might be worth around $200 in retail value, but the remaining couple hundred pounds of comics were practically worthless.
First Taskmaster, first Nova, Red Hulk, some good stuff. There's Doctor Strange in there. Stack I pulled is probably $200 retail.
Other couple hundred pounds of comic books are worth?
5 cents a book if you're lucky. It's common stuff.
So you spent $500 on some comic books I'll be lucky to get like $180 out of, and 7 boxes of the recyclable paper. So they're basically worthless.
Number 1. Youth Indian Vest.
Sioux Youth Vest.
Do you want to pawn it? You want to sell it?
I was looking to sell it.
This seller expressed his desire to sell his Youth Indian Vest to Rick's pawn shop. The seller said that he wanted to sell it for $1,800. They offered to buy it for $1,200, but eventually they settled on $1,300.
I was looking at $1,800.
I'll tell you what, I'll meet you in the middle at 13. That's what I could do.
All right.
Rick then brought the vest to Mark, an expert from the Clark County Museum Administration, for an appraisal. Mark examined the beadwork and determined that the vest was not from the time period the seller claimed it was from. However, he did identify it as an Indian male vest.
It's Northern Plains beadwork. I don't think this is from that time period. I think it's Indian made. It's not made for use.
Corey used this opportunity to play a prank on Rick, pretending that the vest was actually real. Eventually, Mark confirmed that the vest was indeed real.
Who would have thought the Indian vest would have turned out to be real? Here, it's Mark Hall patent. That Indian vest you bought is actually real. Nope.
Well, you've just watched how people on Rick's pawn shop got scammed. But not every scammer can fool them. You won't want to miss our video on scammers on Pawn Stars who tried to fool them but couldn't. Click here and watch.